Welcome, the anointed ones. Be careful with the quiet ones. They're usually the ones building empires in their heads while you're busy making noise. Unknown, but probably someone you underestimated. They don't brag, they don't explain, and they damn sure don't overshare, yet somehow they know. They walk into a room and shift the atmosphere like they brought a secret the rest of us feel but can't quite name. These are the chosen ones, the ones people can't stop whispering about, watching from a distance, trying to figure out what do they know that they're not saying. Here's a wild fact. According to behavioral psychologists, people trust silent individuals more when their presence feels intentional, not passive. That means when you don't say much but your aura screams, "I know exactly what's going on," people can't help but project depth, power, and mystery onto you, and guess what? That perception alone can change everything. So no, it's not about being antisocial. It's not about being deep. It's about carrying undeniable weight without ever raising your voice. And let's be honest, sometimes it's just fun to watch people squirm, wondering what you're thinking while you're actually just deciding between tacos or pizza. But behind the humor, there's something real. When you're chosen, truly chosen, your silence isn't emptiness. It's loaded, strategic, and sometimes prophetic. Let's talk about why people can't stop watching, whispering, or wondering about you, because deep down, they know. You know more than you're saying. Number one, you listen like you're mapping the weak spots. When you listen, it's not casual. It's not just about hearing words and nodding at the right moments. You're studying. You're tracking what's being said, what's not being said, and what's being avoided entirely. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. You're not just present. You're mentally mapping patterns, contradictions, insecurities. You're paying attention to the rhythm beneath the conversation, not just the surface noise. And that throws people off more than they'll admit. Most people are used to listeners who are half distracted, waiting for their turn to talk, ready to jump in with a story about themselves. But with you, they feel something different. You're quiet, but not passive. Your eyes don't drift, they lock in. And the way you focus makes them start second-guessing what they're saying mid-sentence. They feel like they're being read, not just heard. That's because your mind works like a strategist. You're not trying to win the conversation. You're trying to understand what drives it. You're watching for motives, for slips in the narrative, for emotional pressure points. It's not about being manipulative. It's about knowing the full picture before you decide what part you'll play in it. You don't waste your energy responding to every little thing. You save your insight for when it matters. And when you do speak, it usually cuts right through the fluff and hits a nerve. That's what gets people talking about you later. That's what keeps you in their minds. They don't just remember what you said. They remember how seen they felt when you were listening, and also how exposed. Because deep down they realize you weren't just part of the moment. You were observing the entire field. You don't listen for entertainment. You listen like someone who could dismantle the whole story if you wanted to. That kind of awareness sticks, and whether they admit it or not, they know you caught more than you let on. Number two, you don't flex knowledge. You weaponize timing. You don't speak to impress people. You speak when it's necessary, and when you do, it's never random. You're not the one constantly throwing out opinions just to stay in the spotlight. You wait. You listen. You watch how everyone else talks themselves in circles. Then you step in with one sentence that shifts the entire conversation. That's what makes people stop and stare. Not because you talk a lot, but because when you do, it's surgical, precise, unshakable. Most people confuse being loud with being smart. They rush to fill every silence with their version of the truth. But you've learned that timing is everything. You don't reveal what you know all at once. You drop it like a trap door. You wait for the right moment when it lands the hardest, when people need to hear it, not just when you feel like talking. That's the kind of communication people never forget. It's not about withholding to be mysterious. It's about using your words like tools, not decoration. Every sentence carries weight. Every insight feels like it came from a place of real depth, not recycled quotes or surface-level thinking. That's why people pause when you speak. They're waiting for the twist, because you have a way of saying something that suddenly reframes the entire topic. and makes everyone realize they missed the bigger picture. The truth is, your words hit harder because they come with restraint. You don't talk just to prove you're smart. You talk when your words can't be ignored. And people remember that. They remember how just one comment from you could cut through hours of noise and leave them thinking about it for days. That's not charisma. That's strategy. And that's why people sense you know way more than you're letting on. Because if you can do that with one line, they start wondering what would happen if you actually said everything you were thinking. Number 3, your eyes don't wander. They scan. When people talk to you, it's not just a conversation. It feels like a scan. Your eyes don't bounce around the room. They don't drift with boredom or distraction. They stay fixed, steady, analyzing. And that throws people off more than they care to admit, because it doesn't feel like regular eye contact. It feels like you're searching for something beneath what they're saying, like you're picking up the signals they didn't mean to send. You're not just hearing the words. You're reading the tone, the hesitation, the micro-expressions, the twitch before a lie, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the pause that doesn't match the story. People don't always know what you're picking up on. They just know they feel seen in a way that makes them a little uncomfortable. Not because you're judging them, but because you're noticing what they usually keep hidden. Most people are used to glazed-over stares, fake interest, or people waiting for their turn to talk. But your attention isn't passive. It's sharp, focused. It feels like you're looking through the performance and right into the code underneath. And once someone realizes that, they either lean in with respect or get nervous and start talking faster, trying to cover up what they feel you've already clocked. It's not about intimidation. It's instinct. You've trained yourself to see what others miss. You don't take words at face value. You read patterns. You catch contradictions. Your gaze isn't aggressive, but it's not soft either. It's aware. And awareness makes people feel exposed, even when you're just sitting there quietly. That's why people talk about you after the room clears. They say things like, "There's something about their eyes," or, "I don't know. It felt like they could read me." Because you weren't just listening. You were decrypting, not judging, not reacting, just quietly downloading everything. And that's the part they can't stop thinking about. Number 4, you've made peace with being misunderstood, and that terrifies them. You don't bend yourself to be understood. And that's what shakes people. In a world where everyone's fighting to be accepted, to be liked, to be seen the right way, you've already let go of that need. You don't overshare to be relatable. You don't explain yourself to be liked. You don't rush to correct someone's assumptions. You let people think what they want, and you keep it moving. That level of self-containment is rare. It's unsettling even, because most people are used to others performing some version of themselves for approval. But you don't flinch when someone misjudges you. You don't react when people box you in. And that non-reaction, it drives them crazy, because deep down, they realize they can't access you the way they're used to accessing people. They start obsessing, replaying conversations, reading between lines that may or may not be there. They try to get closer, not always out of interest, but out of a need to decode what you're not giving them. And when they realize they can't provoke, flatter, or bait you into emotional disclosure, it frustrates them. You've stripped them of control, and people fear what they can't influence. The truth is, you've already made peace with being the villain in someone's story. You're okay being doubted, disliked, even dismissed, because you don't place your value in public opinion. That terrifies people who need validation to feel real. You don't just ignore the spotlight, you make it irrelevant. You've decided that your truth is enough, even if no one claps for it. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. And the real twist? The more you stay unfazed, the more people talk. The less you try to explain yourself, the more they try to understand you. Because mystery without performance is powerful. You're not withholding to play hard to get, you're just not performing at all. And for people who live off reaction, that's a threat they don't know how to handle. Number 5. You speak in truths. People pretend not to know. When you speak, it cuts. Not because you're cruel, not because you're loud, but because you say the things people have buried under layers of polite denial. You don't dress truth up to make it digestible. You don't wrap it in soft language to spare fragile egos. You just say it, plain, clear, unbothered, and when you do, it hits like a punch they weren't braced for, because deep down, they already knew it. They just didn't want to face it until you forced it into the open. Most people build their lives on quiet compromises. They tell themselves half-truths to keep the peace, avoid conflict, or stay comfortable. But when you speak, you bring light to the cracks they've been pretending aren't there. You say what everyone's thinking but too afraid to admit out loud. About relationships, about work, about the games people play to survive in systems designed to keep them small. You don't call things out for attention. You just refuse to lie to yourself, and by doing that, you challenge everyone who still is. It's not about being edgy or confrontational. It's that your tolerance for illusion is low. You don't find comfort in pretending things are fine when they're not. And that makes people uncomfortable because it pulls the curtain back on their own avoidance. Your truth-telling doesn't create drama. It reveals where the drama was already happening behind the scenes. People say they want honesty until they hear it without the sugarcoating. But you don't speak to be liked. You speak to align, to clear the air, to say, here's what's really going on, whether or not it wins you any fans. And that's what sets you apart. You don't speak truth to power like it's some noble act. You speak in a way that reveals power is often just fear in a better suit. And when you talk like that, without filter, without flinch, people can't unhear it. You shake something loose in them, something they were pretending not to feel, something they now can't ignore. Number 6. Your silence isn't loud. It's a lock. You're not quiet because you have nothing to say. You're quiet because you know exactly what's worth saying, and who's even worth saying it to. That difference is what people feel when they're around you. Your silence isn't some poetic statement or mystical energy. It's a filter, a gate, a test. It's the knowing look that says, I could explain, but you wouldn't get it. Not yet. And that unsettles people more than anything else. Most people fill silence because they're uncomfortable with it. They think if nothing's being said, something must be wrong. But when you go quiet, it doesn't feel like absence. It feels like intention. People can sense you're not zoning out. You're scanning, storing, measuring the temperature of the room and taking notes they don't even realize you're writing. It's why people over-explain themselves to you, even when you haven't asked. They start confessing things just to break the tension. They try to fill the silence because they feel exposed in it. Your stillness makes their noise sound cheap, and the truth, that bothers them, because your energy makes them realize just how much of what they say is filler, surface talk, ego protection, performance. You don't need to broadcast what you know. Your energy already hints that you've seen more than you're letting on. People pick up on it. They feel you're 5 moves ahead but keeping your cards close. That creates a tension they can't resolve. So they talk about you, watch you, try to figure you out. Not because you're mysterious in some vague, trendy way, but because your silence feels like it knows something. And the wild part is, you're not even trying. You're just protecting what matters, what you've learned, what you've survived. Your silence isn't about hiding, it's about guarding power. And people can't stop thinking about what happens when you decide to speak. Number 7. You have a quiet familiarity with darkness. There's a stillness in you that people don't understand. It's not emptiness. It's not detachment. It's a kind of quiet that comes from having sat in darkness long enough to stop fearing it. You don't flinch at discomfort. You don't panic when things fall apart. Because you've already been through your own collapse. And you didn't just survive it, you studied it. You made peace with the parts of yourself others are still trying to hide or deny. Most people are terrified of their own shadows. They keep busy, stay loud, stay distracted, hoping they won't have to face the deeper things. But you've gone there, into grief, loss, failure, identity breakdown. And instead of running from it, you stayed long enough to learn its language. That's why nothing about you feels performative. You don't need to put on strength. You are strong because you faced the parts of life that strip people down to the bone and come back with clarity, not bitterness. You're not fascinated with being the light all the time because you know that's not real. You know growth happens in the dirt, not on the stage. And people sense that. They sense you've been through something, maybe several somethings, that reshaped how you move through the world. That's why people open up around you. They feel you won't judge them for being messy or raw or lost, because you've been there. You recognize the signs. And it's not that you romanticize pain. You just don't fear it anymore. You don't run from the hard conversations, the awkward silences, or the heavy emotions. You sit with them. You make space for them. That presence is rare. It unsettles people who are still performing perfection, but it draws in the ones who are ready to stop pretending. You didn't read about resilience in a book. You built it, brick by brick in the dark, when no one was watching. And that quiet familiarity with the shadows, it makes you unshakable. Because you already know. Nothing in the dark can break you that hasn't already tried. Number 8, you don't share opinions. You collapse illusions. You don't talk just to weigh in. You don't throw out trendy opinions, play devil's advocate, or chase likes with clever sound bites. What you say doesn't live on the surface. It cuts into the foundation. While others are busy debating symptoms, you go straight to the root and rip it out. Not to be dramatic, but because you actually see what's beneath the noise. And when you speak, it doesn't just challenge someone's point of view. It threatens the mental scaffolding they've built their identity on. Most people protect their beliefs like a safety net. It's not just what they think. It's how they stay upright. So when you casually dismantle an illusion they've built their life around, it hits hard. They don't always react outwardly, but inside, something shifts. There's a crack now, a doubt. You didn't try to win the argument. You simply revealed that it was never solid in the first place. That's what makes your presence powerful. You don't argue, you undo. You point to the blind spot. You say the uncomfortable thing. You reveal the hidden cost of the story everyone's buying into. And what makes it more disarming is that you don't force it. You're calm. Unshaken, like you've already done the internal demolition in yourself, so you recognize where others are still clinging to walls that don't hold. When you talk, people don't just feel challenged, they feel exposed, like something fragile inside them just got called out, and now they can't pretend they didn't hear it. They walk away rattled, not because you attacked them, but because you revealed a truth they've been sidestepping for years. And that's not something they forget. You're not here to debate. You're not interested in being right. You're here to reveal what's real. And when you do, illusions don't just crack, they collapse. Number 9. You don't just have insight. You're living a hidden architecture. Your life feels different to people. Not because you shout about your plans or achievements, but because there's an invisible blueprint guiding everything you do. When you walk into a room, it's not random. Every glance, every pause, every choice is part of a design only you fully understand. People sense this, even if they can't put it into words. They catch themselves trying to figure out the pattern, the logic behind what seems like effortless control. It unsettles them because they don't have the map you're following. Most people drift through life reacting to events, caught in cycles of chaos or routine without real direction. But you're not drifting. You're navigating with an unseen compass. Your stillness isn't emptiness. It's a deliberate pause, a way of gathering strength before moving forward. Your words aren't random. They're precise drops in a larger plan that's invisible to the casual observer. People notice this without knowing why. They start projecting myths and stories onto you, trying to explain what they don't understand. This hidden architecture isn't just about being strategic or organized. It's deeper. It's about having a core vision or purpose that shapes every decision, even the ones that seem small or insignificant. It's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your life has coherence, even when it looks chaotic on the surface. And because you don't reveal this structure, people feel haunted by it. They wonder what you're building beneath the calm exterior. They're caught between respect and envy, curiosity and frustration. You don't need to explain your moves or justify your choices because you know they're all part of something bigger. This unseen framework you live by is a kind of power that people can't touch but can't ignore. It's why they keep talking about you. They don't just see a person. They sense a force quietly shaping reality around them. And that, more than anything else, makes you unforgettable. Number 10. You make people question their own narrative. When you're around, people start hearing a different kind of quiet, the kind that unsettles their whole internal dialogue. You don't confront them with arguments or forced debates, but your presence alone makes them stop and rethink the stories they've been telling themselves. The stories about who they are, what they want, and what they believe is possible suddenly feel shaky. It's not about you attacking their beliefs. It's about how you exist so authentically and deliberately that it highlights the cracks in their own carefully built narratives. Most people live inside comfortable stories that justify their choices and shield them from uncomfortable truths. Those stories keep them moving forward without having to ask hard questions. But when you enter the scene, something about your energy pulls the rug from underneath. It's subtle, almost invisible, but powerful. You don't need to say anything for them to feel the shift. They begin to question their ambitions, their values, even the relationships they thought were solid. You cause those internal civil wars where everything familiar is suddenly up for debate. This effect is terrifying for many because it forces them to confront what they might have been avoiding for years. It's not fun to realize that the path you've been on might not be the one you truly want, or worse, that the version of yourself you've been selling to the world is a mask. But with you, those facades don't hold. You don't give people easy answers or solutions. Instead, you create space where the hard questions live and fester until they demand attention. You're not trying to dismantle people for the sake of it. You're simply so anchored in your own truth and clarity that those around you can't help but see their own contradictions and doubts reflected back. And once that happens, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. You make people face themselves, and that power is both feared and admired. Number 11. You don't fit in because you were built to reconstruct. You never quite fit the mold, and that's not an accident. You weren't designed to blend in or play by the usual rules. Instead, you exist to shake things up, to question the foundations that everyone else accepts without hesitation. While most people focus on adapting and surviving within the system, you see the system itself as flawed. A house built on shaky ground, cracks hidden beneath layers of paint and distraction. Your role isn't to keep the machinery running smoothly, it's to pull it apart piece by piece until the truth underneath is exposed. You're wired to challenge what's been normalized, to spot the rigging, the hidden strings, the invisible puppeteers. This makes you a natural disruptor. Someone who doesn't just think outside the box, but understands that the box itself needs to be dismantled. People around you might expect you to conform, to soften your edges or quiet your observations, but you refuse. You don't just question rules, you question the reason for the rules. You don't accept systems that keep people small or silent. Instead, you tear down the illusions that make those systems seem inevitable or untouchable. This makes you dangerous in the eyes of many. They see your refusal to fit in as rebellion, but really it's something deeper. A calling to reconstruct. You're not interested in maintaining broken structures just because they're familiar. You want to build something real, something honest, something that can actually stand the test of time. And that's why fitting in will always feel impossible for you. Because you weren't made to blend. You were made to rebuild. Number 12. You have the calm of someone who's already survived the fire. Your calm isn't some shallow peace you've stumbled upon by chance. It's not the kind of calm that comes from ignorance or avoidance. It's the hard-earned stillness of someone who's been through chaos so intense it could have destroyed them, but didn't. You faced the fire, felt the heat scorch every part of you, and walked out on the other side, changed but unbroken. When others around you lose their heads, scrambling for control or answers, you move with a quiet certainty that unsettles them. It's not that you're unaffected by the chaos, far from it. You carry every scar, every burn mark, every lesson learned deep inside you. That memory doesn't weigh you down, it steadies you. It reminds you that whatever is happening right now is just another flame to walk through, not a wall to stop at. People sense this when they look at you. They don't always know what you've been through, but they see that your calm isn't fragile or forced. It's a survival instinct, an ancient kind of strength that whispers, "I've faced worse." That confidence, rooted in experience rather than hope, is magnetic. It makes people lean in, even if they don't fully understand why. Because in a world full of panic and noise, your calm feels like the only real thing in the room. This isn't about pretending everything is fine or hiding your pain. It's about the fact that pain didn't break you. It transformed you. You don't run from storms anymore. You meet them head on because you know the fire doesn't consume you, it refines you. And that kind of calm, it terrifies and inspires at the same time. Because it's the calm of someone who's not just surviving, but rising. Number 13. People sense you could destroy, but choose not to. People feel it the moment they meet you. There's a power beneath your surface that doesn't need to roar to be heard. It's the kind of power that could shake foundations and tear down walls if unleashed. But you don't unleash it, you hold it back. Not because you're afraid of what might happen, but because you understand the weight and consequence of every action. That mastery of restraint isn't weakness. It's a conscious choice, a signal that you're operating on a different level. Most people mistake constant force for strength. They think the loudest, the most aggressive, the most reactive are the ones in control. But you know better. You've learned that true power isn't about showing off what you can do. It's about knowing when not to do it. The quiet strength in holding back creates tension. It makes others wary. They sense the storm you could summon, and that alone keeps them on edge. Your restraint is deliberate. It shows you're not here to burn bridges recklessly or waste energy proving dominance. Instead, you conserve your force for the moments that truly matter, when the stakes are high and the impact needs to be lasting. This makes your presence magnetic and your influence subtle but undeniable. People can't help but respect someone who's so sure of their power they don't have to prove it. What terrifies others most is that your silence isn't passive. It's a loaded pause, full of potential energy waiting for the right moment to release. That control makes your potential more formidable than those who constantly try to dominate with noise and aggression. Because power that's held back commands more fear and respect than power that's always on display. In a world addicted to chaos and flash, your choice to hold back is its own kind of revolution. It's a quiet declaration that strength isn't about destruction. It's about mastery, and that mastery makes you unforgettable. Number 14. You're not just ahead. You're operating from a different layer of reality. You don't just play the game. You exist on a plane where the game itself looks different. While everyone else is tangled up in their moves, strategies, and distractions, you're seeing the whole picture. You're not locked into the same rules or patterns. You're observing from above, understanding the hidden mechanics and rewriting how the pieces move without making a show of it. This kind of perspective isn't something you stumble into by accident. It's earned through relentless observation, deep insight, and a refusal to settle for surface-level thinking. Most people are stuck playing catch-up, reacting to what's in front of them. They scramble to control what's visible and miss the forces shaping everything behind the scenes. You don't waste energy on short-term wins or petty rivalries because you see beyond them. You operate on a different wavelength where timing, influence, and outcomes are measured in ways others don't even consider. This is why people can't help but talk about you, because eventually they realize you're not just a step ahead. You're on a different level entirely. You're the silent force that others should have noticed sooner, the one rewriting the narrative quietly while they're busy fighting over scraps. Your presence makes them question everything they thought they knew. You don't flaunt this vantage point. You don't drop hints just to prove it. You simply move with the confidence of someone who knows the rules don't apply to them the same way. That alone unsettles people because it breaks their sense of order and control. In the end, what makes you truly formidable is that you aren't just informed, you're transformative. You aren't just ahead in the game, you're changing what the game is. And that's a reality shift most people never see coming until it's already happened. Being one of the chosen isn't about flaunting knowledge or broadcasting power. It's a quiet, relentless force that lives beneath the surface, the kind of presence that makes people stop and take notice, even when you say less than they expect. It's in your refusal to conform, your mastery of restraint, and the way you carry scars from battles most won't face but wear like armor. You don't just react to the world around you. You operate from a deeper layer of reality, seeing patterns and truths others miss, dismantling illusions, not to create chaos, but to clear the path for something real. People can't help but talk about you because you unsettle their comfortable narratives, forcing them to question everything they thought was certain. They feel your power not in a show of force, but in the calm that comes from surviving fires and walking through darkness without losing yourself. Your eyes don't merely look, they decrypt. Your words don't simply speak, they expose the lies power hides behind. And most of all, your life itself is a blueprint, hidden, deliberate, and unshakable, that challenges the status quo without needing to shout. What truly sets you apart is not what you reveal, but what you choose to withhold. Not out of silence, but out of knowing that some truths are weapons best wielded with precision. You don't fit in because you were never built to maintain broken systems. You exist to reconstruct, to tear down illusions, and to stand as proof that real power isn't loud or fleeting. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. In a world addicted to noise, chaos, and constant validation, your presence is a revolution of stillness and clarity. You don't just live ahead of the curve, you operate from a different plane entirely, rewriting the rules while others scramble in confusion. And that, more than anything else, is why people can't stop talking about you. Because deep down they know they're witnessing something rare, something raw, and something profoundly real. You aren't just chosen. You are the force that shapes what being chosen really means. If this resonated with you, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to join the journey, like the video to show your support, and drop a comment below to share your thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters here. And if you know someone who needs to hear this truth, share it with them. Let's build a community that sees beyond the surface and embraces what it really means to be among the chosen. Thanks for being part of something deeper.